Hello everyone. Unfortunately, this video was recorded without my voice, and this voice is just added later. This is start of new videos in which we will focus on creating gardening system, and there are two ways to create gardening systems in games, main ways. So one is like in Valheim, where you're able to change whole landscape, and the second one is like in games like Scum. Okay, here we can see how it looks in Valheim. You can change with your Hoya or your any instrument you want a landscape. It will colorize with another color, and you can place seeds there. And now I will show how it looks in, for example, Scum. So here is how it looks in Scum. It's just a building with constant bounds that can be changed, and I've already created such system with building. You can see it in my shorts videos, but now I don't want to do that because it is a great limitation for a player. So I want a player to be able to plant seeds whenever he wants, whenever it is possible, and not just build something. I want him just to edit uh, an earth and plant seeds how he wants. So I don't know what I'm talking about here. Okay, I'm gonna do a system that looks like in Valheim, but in Valheim landscape is editable. In our case, landscape cannot be edited easily if you use a standard landscape. For example, if you use a voxel landscape or you create an event landscape as a procedural mesh, then it is possible for you to edit it easily. But basic landscape cannot be edited in runtime. So we'll find some way to do that in this video. Okay, I also found one free instrument that I will need for changing an earth. It will be such ways that I found on Sketchfab. It's free, I've downloaded it, and I will use it on a video, but will buy a new one and replace it uh, later. And I've just downloaded it but didn't add it as an instrument in my game project, and now I will edit and time lapse this moment. Okay, now I've added wooden Hoya, and now I can pick up it, equip it. I don't have a thumbnail for it yet. And what we're gonna do next is when we're attacking with this Hoya, then an earth under a place where Hoya hit landscape will be changed to some earth, not a grassland like here. And we will need also to check when we need to do that. Okay, I don't remember, to be honest, what I'm doing here. Oh, okay. We're gonna create a new actor component just for Hoya because Hoya has another logic. It differs from an X, for example, with which we can attack and cut trees, and the hammer, which logic is implemented in building component. So there is a new component just for Hoya, and what we need an event on attack that will be called every time we attack with this instrument. So I've just created a component and added this event. And now we need to call this event somewhere. In my case, I'm handling an attack event in my equipment component. And I have an event called onHit event here, but this event occurs when an animation notify is called. So I need some animation for Hoes, and I need to add some animation. As you can see in my X animation, I have a hit animation, and in every animation of attacking, I have a hit event. And also I need a hit event for some animation for Hoy, but I will use an animation from an X, and I will add this animation now, and I think that I will time lapse it if I will not forget to do that. Here I'm also getting my item equipped, casting it to BP weapon, and checking if it is a Hoya, then I'm gonna get a component, Hoya component, and call on attack event. And now I'm showing which animation I will add from an X. I will add this one animation where I'm cutting from up to down and use it the same animation for Hoya. And now I'm gonna create an animation and I will time lapse it. Here, creation of adding animation from my instruments finished. And now I'm gonna print some string to check if I'm handling this on hit event correctly. Also, don't forget to add the horror component to each character. And yes, hello is printed, everything works fine. And now we should change a nurse behind the hit place somehow. And I'm gonna create a new folder for gardening component and add a new actor there, an actor that will change the landscape and call it just garden place. And for a nurse that I will use, I will select one from Quixel Megascans. And I've downloaded this moist soil material. Also, Quixel has its own decals category, but nothing here fit to my needs. I will check it, check mat category of decals, but there is nothing interesting here. Then I've decided to move these textures, just textures, not a material instance, to my gardening component. And create a new material folder at first and then new material. So the way that we will change landscape, we will use a decal and we will spawn a decal everywhere that our Hoya hits the landscape. So let's open a material and select its domain, not the surface, but a deferred decal, and its blend mode should be an not an opaque. Also, let's move textures here. And its blend mode should be translucent only. So base color goes into base color, normal to normal, and about or DP, I wasn't sure which channel, what is the meaning of each channel, which is the roughness and which is ambient occlusion. And so I decided just to Google it, and it will take a few seconds. And by the way, it's telling in or DP naming, or is occlusion, or is roughness, D is displacement, but I forgot it and decided to ensure that I will connect everything correctly. I'm not a big expert with materials, so in our DP, R goes to occlusion, G goes to roughness, and we don't need a displacement. So opacity is 1 by default, and I just placed it as a constant 1. Now here is how our decal looks like on an earth, and for me it has two sharp edges, And as you can see, Hoya also receives a decal. We don't need it. So we're opening Hoya, selecting static mesh, and disabling it from receiving any decals. We have a parameter called receives decals and making it false, also making this for character skeletal mesh, so when character will step up on a garden, he will not be colored with this decal. So what I want to do is I want to make these edges less sharp. I want them to be smoother, and to do that we need to add a simple opacity mask to our material. So let's create a radial gradient here, and that's how it looks like, and it will go into our opacity, and we can change the density from 0 to any value, and that's how it looks like on opacity on density 1.5, and it is too small. And I will just increase it here. You can change its value to fit your needs how you want. Okay, now it looks good. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna spawn this BP Garden Place actor every time where we hit with our Hoya, where and any place where we hit a landscape with it. So let's open a blueprint and add a decal into our actor. Don't scale it like I'm doing here, you will see it later. And uh, here you can see that my decal is scaled and it stretches a little bit, and that's because I've changed its scale manually and its size manually. So to fix this, you will need to return it back. So I've reset it a scale and its size back, and the thing we need to do is we need to rotate it. on 270 by y-axis. And now everything works fine, but it is too big, so what I'm gonna do is just scale a decal in an actor by half, I think. Yeah, now it has correct size, and the nectar is ready. So the next thing we need to do is to spawn it somewhere where we hit a landscape. And we need to decide how we're gonna handle this. We need to make a line trace, and we cannot. The main question is from where we're gonna do it. We can make it from a camera, but it depends on a camera behavior in your project. In my project, my camera can look upwards and I can hit an earth and the line trace will not work like this. So I can look upwards and still can hit an earth, but I need to make a line trace. So I've decided to make a line trace from the edge of my Hoya. And to do that, I'm gonna just add an arrow component to a place from which I will add from which I will start making a line trace. So let's add an arrow component, rotate it as we want. Rotation doesn't mean anything, just so that you will visually understand faster for what it is. Also, we'll decrease its size. Arrow is not visible in game if you by default, and I'm gonna just add a tag here. So I will get this arrow by a tag from each Hoe because I may have a numerous amount of Hoes and each of them will be subclassed from this one, and I don't want to cast it every time. So on attack event should receive a Hoe with which we're hitting as an input. It will be just an actor to preserve so that we will not need to make any cast and any unneeded casts. And in my equipment component, in place where I'm calling on attack event, I'm just passing an item that I'm holding in my hands. And now let's get a arrow component from our instrument with the stacks that we've added. And I'm just checking if I'm able to get just one component by tag, but no, there's only a function that returns us an array. Next, let's check if an array is empty and I forgot, for example, to add this arrow component somewhere or deleted it accidentally. So if it is empty, I'm gonna just print some message for me that Hoe, Hoe is set up incorrectly. And if we found one component, then we're gonna make a line trace to our landscape. So let's make a line trace by channel. and its start will be this arrow component world location. So we're getting the first element of an array and getting its world location. And it will be a start, and an end will be the same location, but minus some z value, so it will go bottom. And we will need a second line trace, because in some case during an animation, so here we just add in minus 300 by that value, and the trace channel will be, I'm just gonna check which channels landscape is blocking. And while I'm checking this, I will tell you why we need to make two line traces, because in some cases during an animation, the end of your Hoya will be under landscape, and a line trace to the bottom will not hit anything. So to prevent such situation, we will do a line trace to the bottom and line trace upwards. And also, I'm checking if my elements of a forest also block this channel, so that we will not be able to change an earth below, for example, a big boulder in my forest. And I've decided to use visibility channel, both landscape and my static meshes of a forest block this channel. And now let's check if it was a hit. And if we didn't hit anything, then we're gonna make a new line trace. And this line trace will have the same start location, but the end location will be uh, plus, plus 300 by that axis. And now I've decided to make it function, not an event. So let's make a new function so that we will be able to store a hit result as a local variable and work with it. So I create a new function, trace on attack, and just paste it everything from event here. It will also have an input of Hoya, and just plug in everything in. Now we can promote hit result out hit to a local variable, call it local hit result. And let's add a sequence. At first execution node of a sequence, we're gonna do a line trace. I'm just commenting it as line tracing. And as a second node, we're gonna break hit result and spawn an actor. Also, we have to check if it was a hit. For example, if you been able to stay on some rock and trying to hit with your Hoya and didn't hit anything, then you should not be able to do anything. So checking if it was a hit. And if it was, then we are breaking hit result. Also here we need to check that we hit a landscape and nothing else. So here I'm gonna just print an actor that we are hitting for debug reasons, and let's test it out. And I forgot to call a function from an event, so I've just added it. Now you can see that when I hit landscape, it prints us landscape. And when I hit a stone, it prints PCG volume because it is PCG generated. Also, my collision mask for boulder is not very good, so now let's check if we hit it landscape. That can be done with just casting to a landscape. And after I've casted it, then we can, and if cast succeed, then we can just spawn a nectar at location of a hit. So let's call just spawn nectar from class, and the class will be BP garden place. I have two of them, one from an old garden and this one from a new garden. And the rotation scale stays the same, but location is a hit location. And that's all for this video. I think now we can hit landscape it, and as we can see, it is modified. You can just change material if you want. So in the next video, we're gonna, I didn't decide yet what I'm gonna do. Maybe we will remove a grass, foliage that we can see through modified parts, or do something else. So thanks for watching. Hope it will help someone.